We need to talk about the Try Guys, because Keith and Zach just cracked open a vault of behind-the-scenes BuzzFeed drama, and it's way messier than anyone expected. They're spilling what really went down back in the day, and let's just say, some of the stuff happening with employees behind closed doors wasn't exactly squeaky clean. Now the internet is eating this up, and not just because of what they said about BuzzFeed, but also because they're throwing some serious side eyes at one of their former Try Guys teammates. That's right. Keith and Zach sat down on their podcast this week and didn't hold back. BuzzFeed, once the king of viral internet content, is now under the microscope as fans get nostalgic about its golden era. And Keith and Zach are here to drop some cold, hard truth. They didn't just chat about the glory days. Nope, they got into the shady stuff too, like how the company allegedly tried to pull a fast one on its employees. Picture this. BuzzFeed was moving offices, and while everyone was busy packing, they were reportedly handing out paperwork that, get this, would give the company control over employees' likenesses. Total sketch move. Keith and Zach said they weren't about to play along with that. They straight up lawyered up to protect themselves. Can you believe that? BuzzFeed, the viral content machine, allegedly trying to lock down people's identities through fine print? Wild! So get this. The company allegedly warned them that if they didn't sign those sketchy papers, a storm was coming their way. Like, what? That sounds like a threat more than anything professional. And it didn't stop there. Keith and Zach also spilled that people were straight up getting fired just for doing stuff outside of BuzzFeed. Even if it was harmless side gigs or personal projects, they were shown the door. And here's the wildest part. They were told to be honest about any outside work and that there'd be no punishment. But then folks were still getting let go. Total setup. Keith even shared how he had to turn down a major opportunity, a legit airline commercial. That could have been huge for his career, but because he was still working under BuzzFeed's rules, he had to pass on it. No flexibility, no support, just straight-up control. And now it makes total sense why so many people ended up making those "Why I Left BuzzFeed" videos that literally went viral every time one dropped. Those videos became a movement, like a giant flashing sign saying, "I'm free, watch me thrive." And honestly, a lot of them did thrive. People took off and built empires of their own. Just look at Quinta Brunson. She's the ultimate example, a total superstar now. And here's a fun twist. This episode even revealed where the iconic BuzzFeed puppy video idea came from. Who knew all this tea would be spilled in one podcast? So here's the deal. BuzzFeed's now iconic press tour stop? That wasn't some big executive brainstorm. It was Keith's idea. He came up with it during a time when he couldn't even be in the videos himself. And now it's one of the most recognizable BuzzFeed formats ever. Wild, right? But that's not where the drama ends. More behind-the-scenes secrets started pouring out. Apparently, the higher-ups were not happy when the crew worked on Try Guys videos. Even though those vids were racking up major views, the execs were salty. Why? Because 3 people working together on one video meant fewer total videos coming out. They wanted quantity over quality. Zach even threw in that 3 people comment. Yeah, a little dig if you ask me. Especially since we know the Try Guys used to be 4. The shade is real. It's just insane to think, how different would BuzzFeed be today if they'd actually supported their talent instead of holding them back? Sure, everything worked out for the individuals, but maybe the company wouldn't have faded so fast if it had let people shine beyond BuzzFeed's walls. Just look at how Saturday Night Live does it. Their cast can go shoot movies, do commercials, whatever, just as long as they still show up for the show. That kind of freedom keeps people loyal and keeps the brand hot. Imagine if BuzzFeed had played it smart like that. We might be telling a whole different story today. Yeah, sure, One reason companies don't always let their people branch out is because they're scared. Scared that if someone gets too big, they'll bounce and never look back. But here's the thing. Giving people freedom usually makes them stick around longer. Let them grow, and they might stay long enough to pass the torch, giving newer talent time to rise up while still learning from the originals. Keith and Zach weren't totally dragging BuzzFeed the whole time either. They did admit that the company's made some changes over the years. And get this, they actually visited the BuzzFeed offices not long ago to chat with current employees and wish them well. So there's no full-blown beef, just real talk about what went wrong and what could have been done better. Meanwhile, the internet is going off over this podcast episode. People are flocking back to those classic Why I Left BuzzFeed videos, rewatching old interviews, digging up TikToks with clips from the podcast, and the comments are heated. Folks are saying things like BuzzFeed played themselves, and honestly, they're not wrong. Some even pointed out what could have been a genius move. Imagine if BuzzFeed had built a system where they kept a small share in each employee's growing YouTube channel or business, instead of trying to lock them down. That would have created a network of rising stars while still boosting the brand. But nah, BuzzFeed went full corporate mode, all about control. They didn't want to build stars, they wanted to own them. And in the end, they lost them. If they'd played their cards right, BuzzFeed could have turned into something like Smosh or Dropout, a powerhouse of talent with big reach and loyal fans. But nope, they fumbled it. And the fallout? It's still being felt. People are now realizing just how stacked BuzzFeed's talent roster used to be. They had future Emmy winners, viral sensations, comedy icons, and instead of nurturing that energy, they tried to cage it. Big mistake. Zach and Keith even joked in the podcast about how wild it is to look back and see the lineup they had. People who were destined for greatness were right there in one building, and instead of building them up, management kept trying to clip their wings. Imagine walking through those halls and seeing Quinta Brunson, Eugene Lee Yang, Sophia Nygaard, and so many others, all just waiting to pop off. There was even talk in the podcast about how the company could have evolved into a true talent incubator. Something like how Disney grew stars through the Disney Channel, or how NBC used SNL as a springboard for Hollywood careers. But BuzzFeed didn't play the long game. They wanted quick content, tight control, and zero risk. And now, all that talent walked out the door and built their own platforms, independent, thriving, and in full control of their creative vision. Meanwhile, BuzzFeed's trying to rebrand and chase trends that its own former employees are now setting. The craziest part is, the fans saw it coming before the execs did. Viewers felt that shift. They watched their favorite personalities slowly fade out, only to reappear stronger, funnier, and more successful than ever, just not under the BuzzFeed banner. If they had just trusted their people, supported them, and let them cook, we might be looking at a completely different media empire right now. But they dropped the ball, big time. What's even wilder is how obvious the signs were. Fans weren't just watching for the content, they were watching for the people. The personalities were the real stars, not the BuzzFeed brand. But the company didn't seem to get that. They thought viewers were tuning in for quizzes and listicles. Meanwhile, everyone was obsessed with the Try Guys, Quinta, Sophia, and all those unforgettable faces. And when those faces started disappearing, the magic started fading too. BuzzFeed kept trying to pump out content like nothing had changed, but audiences weren't buying it. The soul was gone. You can't just swap out stars like batteries and expect the same spark. Keith and Zach didn't just spill tea, they laid out how avoidable all this was. If execs had just listened, just respected the people creating the content, BuzzFeed could have built a legacy brand. Instead, they built a revolving door. At one point in the podcast, they even talked about how they felt more like numbers than creatives, like cogs in a machine. And when creatives feel boxed in, they don't just get frustrated, they get motivated to leave and build something better, which is exactly what happened. Some fans online are even calling this the biggest media glow-up of the decade, watching all these former BuzzFeed stars blow up on their own terms, with their own channels, their own projects, and total freedom to speak their truth. And now, BuzzFeed is left trying to recapture that energy by reposting old content and chasing nostalgia. But it's too late. The internet has moved on, and the people who once carried the brand on their backs, they're out here winning with no strings attached. Honestly, thank goodness they did walk away. Because if BuzzFeed had actually leaned into it, if they had embraced being the launchpad for fresh talent, they could have been unstoppable. They could have built a rep as the place where internet stars are born. Instead of being scared of turnover, they could have been built for it. But nope, they fumbled that bag hard. That's what everyone's been saying since Zach and Keith aired out this behind-the-scenes chaos. Fans are shook, realizing how badly things were mishandled. All that potential wasted because a company wanted control more than creativity. And let's be real, this is probably the first time many of us are even talking about the Try Guys again since that wild Ned Fulmer scandal. Remember that? Dude got exposed for cheating on his wife. It blew up everywhere. And then he was kicked out of the group. It was chaos. Last we heard, he and his wife are still together. They've been spotted out and about a few times trying to stay low-key. But back to this BuzzFeed drama. What do you think about it all? Was the company too controlling? Did they sabotage their own future? Should they have supported their talent instead of smothering it? Drop your thoughts, because this whole story is a perfect example of how companies can lose everything when they stop trusting the people who made them shine in the first place. I love y'all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Don't miss it. It's gonna be juicy.